Hey, what's up my peeps? Welcome to my review of The Eternals. It's been a week and I feel like everyone would have seen it by now. So with that being said, in the same breath of Shang-Chi like I did in my first video, I want to keep this going and give you all some of my general thoughts on the MCU's latest Phase 4 movie. Now before I begin, I realised the last time I didn't give this a warning beforehand, so there are some spoilers ahead. I'll do my best to be pretty vague about the whole movie, but there will be things that I'm talking about that you will only know after seeing the movie The Eternals. So if you need to, leave this video, go see the movie and then come back, and I would love to have a discussion with you all about the MCU's worst ever Rotten Tomatoes scored film, which is currently sitting at a very low 47% based on 318 reviews. Okay, so let's get started. Now, again, nothing but love for this MCU film. We all knew going into these films that we're going to be dealing with space and aliens and things of that crazy sci-fi nature, some of which we've already seen from previous entries that have done really well. However, for me, The Eternals did not work in the same aspects of Guardians of the Galaxy and Doctor Strange. For those movies, the protagonists were out in space having a grand adventure, so you could suspend your disbelief because it wasn't happening near us. We could sort of believe that there was life on other planets, different planets for them to go to, things of that nature. Even stuff like Doctor Strange, where we're kind of taken on a journey to see this underground society of magic users. We, along with Stephen Strange, were very new to this world, and it was good to see like an outsider's perspective on this. That sort of really worked well for me for Doctor Strange. The Eternals really didn't give us an outsider's perspective on this movie. They didn't give us this luxury, they just sort of threw us into space and aliens and these beings being sent down to Earth with advanced technologies to help humans through their growing pains, which of course there were many. And you can't tell me that this group of individuals who have lived with us for thousands of years just up and vanished. Now yes, there were things like Athena, who had myths like Athena based on her, and of course Icarus, who had myths based around him. Everyone knows the story of Icarus flying too close to the sun, having his wings burned. However, I don't think people with abilities like this could just disappear into society the way that they did. So right off the bat I felt like that was a big ask for the audience to get behind. Now, getting into how they did vanish, the celestial that sent them to Earth told them to never interfere unless deviants were involved. Now, that right there was a massive kettle of fish in its own right. You really can't tell me that these creatures, these apex predators, have no history whatsoever. They have no backstory in our world and where we are today. You'd think with things such as dinosaurs being unearthed, things of that nature, all things from our past that have been discovered today, amongst all of these extinct animals, there was not one mention of deviants. Now, getting back to the Eternals, we get an explanation as to why they haven't helped the human race, such as like the Battle for New York and Ultron and even Thanos' snap. However, if those are the rules that you're going to give yourself, don't pick and choose when to follow them. For example, at the start of this movie, we find out that Cersei, who was a teacher and currently looking after a whole class of students, that there was an earthquake. And with that, she instructs her students to get under the table and brace for impact. One student, of course, obviously being scared and frightened in that moment, hides under a stone tablet. Now, this stone tablet is clearly going to come down And Cersei, being someone who has the ability to turn matter into anything she wants, comes up and turns a stone tablet into dust and saves the little girl. Now, again, you're telling me that this girl, her life had more meaning than 50% of the galaxy's population when Thanos snapped his fingers and took out pretty much half of Cersei's class, which I can only assume. So she didn't want to intervene and help her students in that time of need. It's a bit much, bit hard to believe if you ask me. There's even Phaetos, who helped society along with his brilliant mind and these incredible inventions that he came up with. We learn that he offered his skills during World War II, and he took some of the blame in the Hiroshima bombing. The loss of life clearly had an effect on him. He promised never to interfere ever again. But you're telling me that losing 50% of the world's population to the Eternals, who love and care about the humans and Earth so deeply, that he wouldn't offer his help once again? Mind you, the Eternals were told to never interfere in human affairs, and you're telling me he had a hand in the Hiroshima bombing? Again, if you're going to give these rules to yourself, you have to follow them. There was even Druig, an Eternal who could basically control the minds of every single human on the planet. He, we find out, pretty much takes a number of people hostage and takes them away from the violent free will of humans to live in peace and harmony. Now, we find out that he rebelled against his leader and he didn't follow the rules. He wanted to do things his own way. Again, you're telling me that 50% of his people in his little village vanished and he just sat there and did nothing? It's kind of hard to believe when these people who have these abilities and could have helped out didn't help out at all. Okay, so we follow this group and we find out that the Deviants have returned and they inevitably have to get back together to help the Earth from these Deviants who have turned up again and are starting to pick off some of their people. Ajax being one of them, who is the leader of the Eternals and passes on her role to Cersei. And surprisingly enough, not Icarus, who everyone thought that was a natural born leader. We see Athena and Gilgamesh join the group again, Icarus and Sprite and Cersei, who becomes sort of the reluctant leader of the group. Now this also introduced the character of Kingo, played by the brilliant Kamal Nanjiani. Sorry if I butchered that name there. And he also brought in his assistant Quran, who of course was the MCU's comic relief. You know, it's not an MCU movie if you don't have one of those characters. Now, I, along with probably most of all of you, saw one of the first pictures that come out of the Eternals, and Kamal had this massive six-pack. He had this really sculpted body built out, looked like he was set to become a great addition to this film, you know, superhero physique, all that sort of stuff. I, along with everyone, thought he was going to play a massive role in the film, and then come towards the end when things were breaking down, he just up and leaves. He leaves because he doesn't want to fight his friend, which I understand to a degree, but to have him only have a few action scenes, I really didn't get. I really felt like they should have used his star power more and they should have utilised what he brought to the table more, instead of just one throwaway Bollywood scene, which was really great to see. It was really good to see that sort of aspect in the film, and things like them going to different parts of the world and dealing with different time periods, stuff like that. That was really cool. So we learned that Icarus is not going to betray the Celestials. The Celestials plant seeds in planets that have complex life on it, which then inevitably, once the Eternals save these aliens or beings or whoever, they protect these people from the deviants, and then the amount of life becomes so massive and so huge that Celestials finally have enough power to give birth to themselves and basically destroy the whole planet, killing everyone and everything on that said planet. So Icarus is not going to try and stop the birth of this Celestial. I'm really not getting who's good or who's evil in this film. Like, you find out that the deviants are also a part of the Celestials' plan, and I don't know. That was another confusing aspect of this film. You really didn't get a sense of who was good and who was bad, and it was just really confusing in the end, if you ask me. So, with a handful of the Eternals trying to put some sort of plan into motion, Icarus and Sprite are the two that decide to fight against their brothers and sisters, the Eternals. Icarus comes down hard on the Eternals, bad, like he almost kills one or two of them. Sprite also even goes after Cersei and even stabs her after living with her for who knows how many centuries. And it's just hard to put into words. Like, I find it hard to believe that Sprite, who had lived with Cersei and basically stayed with her during this whole period of them living on Earth for, again, however many centuries it was, she just turns her back on her and tries to kill her. So the Eternals finally take on Icarus and stop him to a degree. Athena has a great battle with one of the deviants, who is turning into some sort of humanoid thing. But again, it's just really confusing as to who the bad person is and who the good person is. But props to Angelina Jolie. Seriously, she did great in that action sequence, and it was really cool. It's really great to see her acting skills up on the big screen. She was a really good addition to the film, if you ask me. She did a great job, and she's a great actress, I reckon. So getting back to the Eternals' plan, Cersei wants to get a hold of the Celestial and turn him into something to stop him from being birthed and destroying the planet. We then see Icarus finally break free of the other Eternals. He damages them badly and gets up to Cersei. He's got her right where he wants her, and all he needs to do is take her out, and his overall plan, his overall design can be fulfilled, if you will. And he doesn't do it. He warns the Eternals that he's going to kill them if any of them gets in his way. And his relationship with Cersei that we've seen in the past, they were married and they did share the MCU's first ever sex scene. We see him break down and not want to kill her out of his emotional attachment for her. Now, this is the same guy who just attacked all his friends, gravely injured some of them, and probably almost killed some of them, and the one thing he was doing that for, he's not going to do now because Cersei got in his way. I mean, I understand the power of love and affection and all that, but if that's how he felt, then why didn't he help her to begin with? And then, my most favourite part of the whole movie, not only does he stop and break down there, but then he just flies off into space and flies into the sun. Now, again, I get the symbolism of Icarus flying into the sun. I get that, but he just goes and kills himself. And it's like, rightio, just, okay, that's how he wants to go out. Overall, to me, that didn't feel like an MCU ending. It didn't feel like a definitive good guy won and a definitive bad guy lost. It just sort of felt like an event a very crazy event that happened and that humans were just sort of in the middle of, and these Eternals were playing this massive life or death game on our planet, and it was just basically confusing. Now, Cersei has some power to turn Sprite into a normal human being because that's what she wants. She doesn't want to be a child anymore or continue living as a child as she has been for the past centuries she's been on Earth. That's fine, just, try and kill me and be rewarded for it. Again, another confusing aspect of the film I found. Half of the Eternals blast off into space to look for other Celestials and other Eternals like them. The other half of the Eternals stay on Earth and still remain amongst the humans, some of them having lives with humans and having families, so they don't want to leave those behind. We then, of course, get our two end credit scenes, one of that being a troll introducing a member of a boy band or something, and another one of Kit Harington grabbing a living sword, and of course we later find out that he's going to become the Black Knight, which I reckon will be really cool. It'll be really good to see him in action, and I'm kind of upset that we didn't get to see him in action in this film. Would have been good to see him wield a sword and help the Eternals in some way. That would have been really, really cool, but we'll probably have to wait until the inevitable sequel. Okay, so overall, this didn't feel like an MCU movie to me. The action was there, superpowers and people to save the world from a big threat. However, the characters sort of fell flat for me, and the overall plot, while somewhat comprehensible, it didn't work for me as a whole, and definitely not for a Phase 4 outing. Me, personally, I want to see things like people who become heroes from the legacy left behind from the Infinity Saga. I want to see things like Iron Man's daughter taking up the mantle because of who her father is, or things like out of the Black Widow movie where we saw Yelena. And I mean, if you've watched that movie, you can sort of see that she's going to become the new Black Widow. That's sort of an inevitable turn for her, and I'm sure a massive character arc she will have, which I'm really looking forward to. But anyway, back to the Eternals. I know this was a long one, and thank you all for listening if you're still around. I didn't mean to go off too much about this film. I know there are people who put a lot of work into this film, and I'm not trying to take away from that. The acting was great. The film was really well put together. Had Disney money behind it, so everything that we saw up on the big screen, like people flying or monsters, the deviant stuff of that nature, it looked really on point. The CGI was great, and you could actually sort of feel that these individuals could do the things that they were doing. However, just overall, it wasn't an MCU film for me. Again, guys, thank you for listening. Like and subscribe if you want to hear more. Leave a comment if you want to discuss any of my points. I'd be more than happy to talk to anybody who wants to agree or disagree with whatever I've had to say. And yeah, see you all on the next one.